And then check out the difference in the engine power.
And this one's right there.
Yeah, it's right there.
Already right there.
This one right here only had, so there are a lot of differences besides. Today, I'm putting two Grand Sports together that GM built almost 10 years apart in the same color combination. But here's the real question. Did GM really improve the Grand Sport with this new C8? All right, guys, so I am here at Corvette World with my brand new C8 Grand Sport alongside a C7 Grand Sport in the exact same amazing color scheme. And I wanted Robert to help me out with this video. We are going to do a comparison of the two cars. They are very similar in a lot of ways, but we want to find out if GM made the C8 better than this C7. Not in the well-known ways, but maybe in subtle differences that most of us don't know about. So let's get into it.
All right, so we have here a 2017 Grand Sport with the traditional Heritage package. Obviously, same color, and I guess shout out to GM. They did not change the color formula, the Admiral Blue, from all accounts. It is the same. Obviously, this one was done at the old paint facility before they went to the newer one, which took over in 2019. So minus probably a slight orange peel difference. I think the color shades are virtually identical, all depending on the angle. But when you get the angles at the same kind of perception, you definitely see it.
What I was going to say is what I think you and I both noticed is that this is smoother.
Right.
It's a little bit smoother, and that's because they spent $400 million on a paint facility.
Yeah, that they did. Now, I will know, in case people are thrown off, there is a PPF on the bumper in this car, so that may throw it off a little bit. So, but anyway, yeah.
Actually, did I say 400 million? I meant 40 million.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, that is a lot. 400 million?
One thing I noticed right off the bat, though, with my car is that the white comes all the way almost to the front of the bumper.
Right.
And on this, it doesn't.
Right, yeah. And again, that's where, okay, case in point. Now, the C7s, they did the cutoff at the vent.
Yeah.
Whereas the C4, they went all the way forward.
Well, and there was no vent on the C4.
Yeah, correct.
And there's no vent up
they
here.
Went further up, but they did stop it at the bed. But you go all the way back. Whereas here, it stops off right there at the spoiler.
Right.
So slight variation in the striping setup. But obviously, you know, I will say this. The Victory Red fender hash marks, I think, are identical. I think that is Victory Red. And that is...
I think they called it, if my memory serves me correctly, I think they called this Adrenaline Red.
Oh, they did? Okay.
Either that or Torch.
Okay.
I can't remember.
Might be Torch. I mean,
but the biggest difference between these is that those are not outlined and these are.
Right. Yeah, which I like the outlining. Again, they started outlining the stripes in 2024. Remember on the E-Ray when we first debuted? I love that. Gives it like a 3D effect.
Yes.
Whereas, and if you think about it, they did outline them in the C6. They did kind of have an outline on those with a little cross flag on them.
Yep.
So yeah, that was a thing they brought back versus just a straight line.
The other difference right off the bat here is the Grand Sport emblem.
Which is permanently embossed.
But it is really cool that you didn't have to upgrade to that logo. Whereas this, I do like this better as far as the look of it. And it is right by the vent. But that was a $295 upgrade to get the red on there, which is pretty ridiculous.
Right.
But I wasn't going to go with the gray and the black.
Right.
It wouldn't have looked right. Now with that red on there, it just matches everything perfectly.
Yeah, and I actually kind of like that they got the Grand in.
Yeah.
It's dark.
Yeah, I do too.
Now, I get what they were doing here. They did it in, you know, even though it's stainless, they were kind of trying to highlight the white from the back.
Yeah.
I get what they were trying to do.
So the other thing that I noticed also is, that, you know, with the vents up here, they are body color, and that was something that C7 went with. And I'm really surprised with the C8 that was not standard on this.
Yeah.
You know, they made it standard on the E-Ray.
Right.
Because the E-Ray was replacing the C8 Grand Sport. But when they brought the Grand Sport out, this was not a standardized thing. So your side boomerang and the rear vents back here and the front vents up front are carbon flash.
Yes. Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting to me. Another thing is look at the side rockers.
Yes. They definitely resurrected that. They went further back, and I always said that, you know, this reminded me of the 7 because they go right to the, I want to call it the V point here. And they went a little further back. The V point would have been a little further up, but again, it's a similar logic to it.
But let's show everybody. Look at how much larger this is.
If anything, the Z06 has the shorties now.
See that? The Z06 stops really far or really close up there towards that vent right there.
It's almost.
You look over here, and this goes way past the vent.
Yeah. Which again, I will give at least there's a clear separation because when the 17 came out, the shorty was brand new with it, which was cool, and they debuted a new side skirt with it. But every wide body got it standard, which included the Z06 at that point.
Sure.
So it kind of made it more generic, whereas this is definitely a little more unique versus that version. But again, that kind of separates the lineup. One thing they did keep, and I respect a lot, is a 10-spoke wheel.
Yeah, and let's get into the wheel and the brake system that they have here.
Yes.
I want to compare the wheels, and I also want to compare the size of the caliper with the size of the rotor. So we know that the wheels are bigger by one size. These are 20s, those are 19s.
Yeah.
And then these are 21s in the rear, and those are 20s in the rear.
Correct.
So let's look at...
Ironically enough, though, the front tire on the 7 is actually larger in width, though.
Yeah, it's a 285. Yeah.
Versus 275.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So to me, I think the caliper and the rotor are pretty darn similar in size.
Yes.
I really do.
Yeah, if anything, this is obviously got the slotted Brembo.
Right.
But you can see it does fill the wheel well still pretty good. And it's like about the same gap size as that. But it's kind of different when you got a bigger rim. It's a bit of an offset there.
Yeah. But if you look at the wheels are super similar.
Yes.
The difference to me in that wheel and this wheel is this really has from here to around to here has the shape of the C8 logo.
Yes, exactly. As well as kind of that blade, kind of almost that blade design that they had as an accessory wheel during the C7 Z06.
And then the fenders are quite a bit different as well on the wide body C7s up front, especially.
Yes.
Because you have these are aftermarket, but these would still be a composite material if they weren't aftermarket.
And just so you know, these actually are stock. They had them hydrated.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
but I mean,
they don't look like that factory.
But look at that. Look at the difference in the fender on a C8.
Correct.
You get this bowing out, but on the C7 you have this coming out.
Right. Exactly.
So quite a bit of difference there. The rear is very similar though. There's nothing on the rear back here on the C7, just like there's nothing back here.
Except just a big fat fender.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because they both went fatter on the rear for sure.
Now, another, to me, very large difference is this.
Yes.
The rear spoiler, to me, I really, really love this. You know, I'm a low profile spoiler type guy. So I really love that. And I love that it's body color too.
Right. Yes.
And then you got the carbon flash underneath. But look at how much larger the C7 rear spoiler is.
Right. It bows up further. Now this one also has the body color option. You can get them in carbon flash, but this is the body color.
Yep.
And now these are aftermarket hydro dipped, but these are based on the OEM wicker build size. So disregard the aftermarket setup. But but one thing they do share is the ability to interchange them. You can come with the shorties if you desire. Yeah.
And you could interchange those too. If you look at the bottom of them, they do have the rivets or the screws there, so you can put the wicker bills on that as well.
Yeah, they usually have a star.
I don't think I'm going to though. I don't know. I really like that look.
It does look good. I mean, aside from a look thing, the only functionality to it would be for aerodynamics. But if you're not tracking it, who cares? One thing that's definitely different, the MPP exhaust was standard on all Grand Sports, and they didn't change it. It was
Right.
all one exhaust the whole time, versus this, you have 2 exhaust options.
Yeah, and that's something that I definitely wanted to address. You know, a lot of people in the comments are saying, why did you not get the center exit exhaust? It's actually a very simple answer. I think that GM charges way too much for something that doesn't change the sound enough, in my opinion. I've heard my car now, and I've heard the cars, you know, with the center exit exhaust. Yes, the center sounds a little bit better because they're all 4 together. But I'm telling you right now, I've got some footage with my GoPro on these exhausts, and it sounds really good still.
And I know this has always been the thing also, how they look. I will still say this. The black tipped design flushes with that rear diffuser setup. I think it looks gorgeous.
And I agree that the center exit exhaust looks a little cleaner and a little
Yes.
better. I definitely love that. But I didn't think that it was worth $2,000
Right.
to get that exhaust put on this car. And I'll get into that in a different video. This is a totally different build than I've ever done before. It was something that I wanted to do to really conserve the price and show you guys that you can build a phenomenal Grand Sport without going way up there in the price range. All right, we can't talk about the difference in the exhaust on these things without giving you guys at least some startups. Definitely sounds good.
Got that nice V8 guttural.
Oh yeah. And now time for the C8 6.7 liter.
It is definitely a slightly deeper pitch than the Stingray for sure.
It is.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
And again, you know, they all have that little
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know, in their own different ways.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. Yeah.
So let us know which one you think sounds better, guys. All right, let's take a look at the engines now. Let's start with the C7 first. So the biggest difference to me about this is how wide this engine cover is.
Yes.
You know, it just makes the engine look massive. This is
It
this
does
is a
go up.
6.2 liter. It is big, but it just makes it look massive with how wide that engine cover is.
Yeah. Now this one is obviously identical to the C7 Stingray, the 6.2 liter LT1, but it was in the Z51 configuration as a standard with the dry sump oil system.
Sure.
AKA the Z52 package.
So we can't look under here without talking about the horsepower differences.
Yeah. The LT1 was, if you had no exhaust, it was 455. But since MPP was standard on all Grand Sports, they were all 460 horsepower with 465 pound-feet of torque.
Okay. Check out the difference in the engine power. So 535 horsepower, that's 75 more horsepower than the C7. And then 520 torque is 55 more torque than the C7. That's actually a large difference.
Right. And then you made it to the a very fast dual clutch in a more advanced platform.
Oh, yeah.
Put the power down.
And I can tell you, not only is this way smaller on the engine cover, but the other difference that you notice right away is you have almost no room in the engine compartment.
Right.
And over there on that C7, you have a gigantic amount of room
Right.
in the engine compartment.
And again, you know, this is once again, you know, first time since the LS7 that we got a big block bore size, but in a small block configuration.
Sure.
So I'm glad they resurrected. We thought, you know, hey, are they ever going to do a big block again? Now they didn't do a physical big block, but it's a big block bore.
Yep.
And I like it. It's big. It's a mean looking motor. And on top of that, you know, obviously, you know, just like the 7, you got room to accessorize. You can still put the carbon fiber pieces and whatnot if desired. And you have the lighting package, which looks really good in here.
And of course, you know, you've got the
trunk space.
trunk space.
unimpeded.
You know what? It looks like those wickers are in there.
Oh, yeah.
Is that what those are?
Yeah, that's it.
All right.
Your
well,
stage 2 wicker.
so I do have the wickers in there.
Look at that. They even show you instructions.
Nice.
Now look, they call it ZERV spoiler extension package.
Oh my gosh.
There you go. Nice.
Nice. So they are in there. All right. So the other, enormous difference is this actually has a trunk back here, and it is tiny compared to this.
Correct. Well, if you add up the total cubic footage, it's actually a lot closer than people think. But again, split in two different compartment areas versus a big bulky area.
So yeah, you've got the frunk up here, but it looks small compared to what you have back there in the C7. I've had both the C7 and I've had, a bunch of C8s, and you can fit quite a bit in there, just not quite as much as you can fit in there.
Correct.
All right, let's get into the interiors.
This actually ends up being a pretty good comparison because they're both 2LTs. So LT, obviously, you don't get the Napa, you get the Mulan leather and the standard stitching. Now, I will note, obviously, you had to get the 3 to get the custom stitching. This one came standard with the light gray stitching setup, but you do get the other Heritage package items, which is, of course, the fender hatch marks and the brushed aluminum there.
Where? Oh, right there.
Right
yeah,
there.
Yeah,
Right next to the infotainment system.
Yep.
And the Heritage package gives you the Grand Sport Premium mats.
Yeah. So that was something that I definitely wanted to point out. So I'm glad you did, because it was very disappointing when I found out that I bought the Heritage package and I wasn't going to get those stripes or that floor mat. But the number one thing that I see in here that's way different than the C8 is your driving position. And you've got that really big hood that you're looking over, which isn't a bad thing. It's just something that you don't have in the C8.
Correct.
At all. So I'll also say that I definitely like the seats of the C8 a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
The C7 seats are nice, but these feel a little bit more comfy and hold you in a little bit better. And then this seating position is just night and day different. You're basically looking at no hood.
That's correct.
So,
yeah, it slopes down really steeply.
Yeah.
And
then, of course,
at least your 2 trim here does give you the option of red stitching, which is a big upgrade and looks better, because I think that's one thing that I wish I would have had. You can only get the red stitching in the 3.
Sure.
7, to my knowledge.
Well, this is brand new for 26, I believe, where you could get red stitching in the 2LT.
Correct. That's a more recent thing, but I'm glad they do. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
And at least your mats do have the red stitching, and I'll give them that. At least they did that.
Yeah, and then the other obvious gigantic difference is all the screens.
Mm-hmm.
So you got the massive screen here.
From an LCD to the Gorilla Glass, and now you have full cockpit of screen.
Yeah, you got the third screen over here that is really, really nice. And I really like the colors too. So I didn't want to get into a huge amount of detail about the interior, but obviously there are way more technology things in the C8 than the C7, including this up here with the traffic and
lane keep assist, forward collision,
all that stuff.
Yes, yeah, okay. They're definitely tech. 2017, again, second year for the front curve view cameras, third year for the performance data reporter, built-in dash cam, but that was it. Having backup camera was standard since 14. This one, you get the backup, you get the sensors for cross traffic alert, and those extras. So definitely an evolution in technological advancement. Yeah. In the body lines. Now, again, but one thing when comparing it to one of the big things about Grand Sport was what? Controllability. See, the Z06s, whether you be the, in this case, 650 horse or the 670 horse, you got a lot more power. But when you're on a track, especially if you're on a low speed, high turning track, controllability, by having these were almost considered underpowered. What the setup is.
Yeah.
Now, I think
they were underpowered.
They were, for its time. But the plus side of that was they were regarded as a favorite for a lot of people because they were so controllable. Because the setup was designed for 650 horse on a 460 platform. What's nice about this is this kind of hits that mark. I think that 535 horsepower mark is right now.
Yeah, in fact,
sweet spot.
I'll tell you what, a lot of people complained about the horsepower. We know this. And guess what? They all wanted right around 550 in the Grand Sport. So this is darn close to that.
Exactly.
It's only 15 horsepower away.
That's correct. In fact, it was Randy Post who, when he raced this, ironically, won it just like this. That was, he said, he just wished it was right around 520, mid-5 horsepower.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Versus, and this one's right there.
Yeah, it's right there.
Already right there.
Yeah.
In a great setup. And I'm sure, you know, we're going to start getting some numbers on tracks on this thing eventually. You know,
Sure.
so it's early in early in its release, but I think we're going to see some fantastic numbers on this car when it comes to its ability on the track.
All right, so we want to know what your opinion is. I bought the C8 Grand Sport for a reason. I love this new car. It is so far amazing, but we want to hear from you guys which one you guys like the best and why. And let us know in the comments down below if this video helped you. There could be a lot of people out there that are wanting to take a look at the C8 Grand Sport, but they also still love the C7 Grand Sport. And this will probably help you make a decision which one you might want to get, therefore help you with your buying decision.
We'll say this. If you're in a market for a C8 Grand Sport, GM, to their credit, they've given you a lot of choices with stuff. You got different magnetic ride options, sport options. You got an all-wheel drive option coming out soon, and obviously, you know, we've talked about some of the creature comforts in the exhaust. So you take your pick. This was definitely a little bit more simplistic for its time compared to that, but they do slice that line, I think, perfectly. If you're looking for that, in my opinion, that perfect sweet spot driver supercar, these are your cars.
Well, and you brought up a good point. So this one right here only had two options.
Correct. You had the standard FE6 setup and the FE7 Z07 track
Z07 track package.
Now, ironically,
this actually has three setups.
Correct.
So you can get the setup that I have, the Z52 Performance setup, or the Z52 Track Performance setup, and go full Z07 on this car. So the Grand Sport is very, very interesting that they went with three options on this one instead of just the two options that that one had. Right. So there are a lot of differences besides just the visual, you know, in your face differences.
Yes. And the fact that this setup like you have is actually different than that of a Z06 altogether.
Yeah.
Gives it a different ride, a different feel that might really be appealing for a lot of people that maybe found that Z06 not their liking. So definitely worth a try on these.
Yep.
Whereas these, they were exactly the same as the Z06.
Sure.
Just underpowered.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up. Leave your comments down below. Smash that red subscribe button. I hope each and every one of you have a wonderful rest of your day. And we'll see you guys out on the road.